Hello everyone! We meet again in a new chapter of the turbulent story between James and Dipe, where every moment is not only a test of love, but also a tug-of-war between trust and hidden truths. After misunderstandings that seemed beyond repair, can their hearts be strong enough to weather the storm? Watch the video and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any updates. In the previous episode, a shocking twist deeply fractured the seemingly unshakable relationship between James and Dipe. In that fateful moment, James unintentionally witnessed Dipe tenderly bandaging Tianj, an old friend who had now become a thorn in his side. From a distance and under the dim flickering light, James saw Tianj lean in toward Dipe, and for a fleeting second, it looked as if they were sharing a secret kiss. His heart clenched. Without waiting for an explanation, without even giving her a chance to speak, James turned away, choosing to let the wound in his heart fester in silence. Meanwhile, Dipe, completely unaware that she had just triggered a painful misunderstanding in the man she loved, continued to work quietly, pushing herself harder in hopes of becoming more worthy of James. But she didn't know that the real storm was quietly approaching. In another turn of events, Trang, the girl who had long dreamed of marrying into wealth, had begun taking the first, calculated steps in her plan to get close to James. With an innocent face masking a cold, calculating heart, Trang didn't just want James, she wanted everything he owned. She and her mother secretly devised a plan for her to join his company, which would soon become the battleground for her schemes of seduction and emotional manipulation. At the same time, two familiar names were silently joining forces. Tianj, still nursing a wound that had never healed because of Dipe, and John, a man bearing a generational grudge against James's family. Together, they formed an alliance in the shadows. One aimed to use love as a weapon to take what he desired, while the other plotted to destroy the James family legacy from its roots. Two men, two motives, but one common enemy, James. And they are ready to strike. Not only is James struggling with the emotional pain of a shattered relationship with Dipe, but he's also facing an unprecedented crisis in his career. In recent days, the company's headquarters has been surrounded by a wave of fierce protests from local residents, the very same people who had previously signed off on the compensation agreement. In less than a week, several key projects of the corporation have come to a standstill. Bidding packages worth hundreds of billions are now at risk of being cancelled due to halted progress. What shocked James the most was the sudden spike in the compensation demands, 5 times higher than initially agreed, an irrational figure that forced the entire executive board into an emergency meeting under red alert status. Once a man known for having control over every situation, James now finds himself besieged on all fronts, fake news spreading in the press, edited video clips circulating online accusing his company of cheating the people, and employees falling into panic and confusion. The pressure from shareholders is relentless, hammering away at the pride of a man who once stood tall at the helm. What James doesn't know is that behind this orchestrated smear campaign stands John, his family's most cunning and dangerous enemy. With meticulous planning, John hired people to pose as affected residents, spreading false information and uploading fabricated stories about inhumane forced compensation across social media. But he didn't stop there. John secretly bribed several former suppliers, causing major disruptions in the supply chain. Now, James is like a wounded soldier caught in the middle of a battlefield, betrayed in love and stabbed in the back in business. John didn't stop at destroying James's reputation and career. He was ready to unleash his final, most ruthless move, the kidnapping of Dipe. He knew one truth above all else: James's heart. though seemingly frozen, always softened when it came to that one woman. And if he could strike at Dipe, he could bring an entire empire to its knees. On a stormy night, at an abandoned house deep in a deserted suburban area, John and Tionj met in silence. Under the flickering yellow light, a sinister plan was laid out step by step like a twisted chess game. "We don't have much time," John said, his voice low but icy cold. "Take her. Force James to sign over 11 key assets, the Golden Lands, the shares, and full executive control." Tionj sat across from him, his thoughts in turmoil. Jealousy had blinded him for a long time, but somewhere in his eyes still flickered a faint trace of hesitation. "And James?" he asked. John smirked a smile devoid of humanity. "Once it's done, we erase him. Clean, no one will trace it back." To Tionj, this wasn't just a scheme, it was a chance to win Dipe's heart completely. According to the plan, after Dipe was kidnapped, he would heroically appear, break down the door, and rescue her from a masked attacker, who was, of course, hired by him. The entire scene would be recorded, a fake proof of bravery, designed to win her trust. In her eyes, he would be the man who risked everything to save her, the perfect replacement for James, who had supposedly betrayed her. What Tionj didn't know was that he too was just a pawn. For John, the concept of allies didn't exist. Once James was eliminated and Dipe exploited, Tionj would be discarded just as coldly, no hesitation, no remorse. In the dense darkness of their plot, none of them realized that their fates were being drawn into a whirlpool of crime where love, hatred, and betrayal intertwined like an invisible net, tightening around their final breaths. While James was struggling to keep his footing amid a whirlwind of crises and conspiracies, Trang, with her innocent facade masking a cunning mind, continued to quietly weave herself into his life, step by calculated step. Taking advantage of his vulnerable state, she appeared as a devoted colleague, a woman eager to learn from her boss to grow professionally. Every day, she made sure to arrive at the office earlier than anyone else and stay long after others had gone. Her seemingly innocent questions, "Mr. James, what would you do in this situation if it were you?" Or, "I truly admire the way you manage everything," were all carefully crafted to strike at the core of James's pride as an experienced leader. Then, in what seemed like a casual suggestion, but was in fact meticulously planned, she asked if she could accompany him to the field to better understand the project. Weighed down by exhaustion and countless problems, James agreed, partly out of fatigue, partly because having someone to assist with the logistics seemed practical. At the construction site, Trang seized every chance to demonstrate excessive thoughtfulness. A water bottle handed directly to him, a jacket neatly laid on his chair, even staged missteps so James would have to catch her. Each gesture was subtle, just restrained enough to avoid suspicion, but provocative enough to make onlookers wonder if there was something more than professional between them. Trang knew exactly what she was doing. James was isolated, emotionally wounded, and most importantly, plagued by doubts about Dipe. She didn't need him to fall in love immediately. She only needed to plant a seed, a small one of hesitation, just enough to crack what was once solid. What Trang didn't know, however, was that no matter how fractured James might be, deep within his soul, Dipe's image remained untouched. And when a man still carries the shadow of the one he loves, no matter how refined the seduction, no matter how well crafted the illusion, it will always shatter before the truth. On Dipe's side, the days without James felt heavier than ever. She couldn't understand why he had suddenly disappeared. No texts, no calls, and not a single appearance like before. That emptiness made every morning she woke up feel suffocating. She missed James to the point of aching, but she refused to let herself break. She told herself, maybe he's just busy. Maybe I need to be stronger to be worthy of him. And so, she threw herself into work, from the smallest tasks like waking early to pick jackfruit from the garden and selling it at the market, to taking on extra cleaning jobs every evening. Sweat soaked through her shoulders, her hands swelled from heavy lifting, but nothing could stop her thoughts from drifting back to James. During her short breaks, she would quietly open her phone, stare at the wallpaper, a photo of the two of them taken on their anniversary, then put it away again, knowing full well her messages were still unread. At last, unable to bear the silence any longer, Dipe decided to go find him. She didn't call in advance. She didn't plan what to say. She simply thought, if he won't answer the phone, then I'll stand in front of him and ask directly. The sky that day was overcast, with neither sun nor rain perfectly mirroring Dipe's mood. When she arrived at James's house, the door was shut, still and silent. She rang the bell, no answer. She called, the ringing echoed into emptiness. Dipe bit her lip, trying to reassure herself. He's probably in a meeting, maybe he hasn't seen it yet. She sat down on the front steps, hugging her knees and waiting. It didn't matter how long, 1 hour, 2, or the entire afternoon. She just wanted to see him, to ask him plainly, "Why are you avoiding me?" But what she didn't know was that, at that very moment, James was somewhere else, entangled in a storm of crises, drowning in heartache from a misunderstanding, and most of all, slowly drifting further away from the girl who was still waiting for him in silence, outside a door that remained closed. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the air grew chilly, Dipe still sat quietly on the steps outside James's house. Her hands were clasped tightly together, eyes occasionally drifting toward the distant road as if hoping he might appear. Just then, a motorbike pulled up to the curb. Tianj, polished in appearance, wearing his familiar reassuring smile, stepped off. "Have you been sitting here long?" he asked, his voice laced with concern, though a hint of faint worry lingered beneath it. Dipe nodded faintly, her voice soft. "He's not home, and he won't answer his phone." Not missing the chance, Tianj gently offered, "It's getting late. Let me take you home. It's not safe for you to be out here alone like this." After a moment's hesitation, Dipe agreed. She didn't have the strength to argue anymore. She just wanted someone to take her away from the ache of waiting. But fate had other plans, ones that would push things even further off course. On their way back, as they passed a small cafe by the roadside, Dipe's eyes caught a glimpse of James, seated in a shadowy corner with Trang. She recognized him instantly. The broad shoulders, the deep-set eyes, but today, those eyes didn't look in her direction. Her heart clenched. Without a word, she told Tianj to stop the bike and quickly walked toward the cafe entrance. James saw her too, and Tianj standing just behind. In that instant, it was like something exploded inside him. Anger, hurt, and every doubt he'd buried suddenly surged to the surface. To him, Dipe had come looking for him but arrived with the very man he had always suspected. The sight cut like a blade through a wound that had never healed. Before Dipe could step inside, James stood up abruptly and leaned toward Trang. "I have to go," he said coldly, and without another word, left the cafe, fleeing like he was running from the pain itself. Dipe entered, heart pounding, eyes scanning for James, but all that remained was Trang, calmly stirring her cup of coffee. "Where's James?" Dipe asked, trying to steady her voice. Trang looked up, her smile gentle but edged with ice. "Oh, he just got an urgent call, had to leave. You're a little late," Just one short sentence, emotionless and smooth, but it was enough to chill Dipe to her core. She didn't say anything more. She simply nodded, turned, and walked out of the cafe. Outside, not far away, James stood hidden behind a tree near the parking lot, watching her go. She was still so small, still so quiet, just like the first time they had parted. But he couldn't bring himself to step forward. He was afraid that if he looked into her eyes again, his heart might finally break beyond repair. So close yet never further apart. Will the love between James and Dipe be strong enough to withstand the storm? Will the truth finally come to light, and who is truly behind all the dark schemes? Stay tuned for the next episode to uncover the thrilling conclusion to this dramatic story. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the exciting twists to come.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Mọi người ơi, cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều vì mọi người đã dành thời gian để theo dõi video. Và trong tập hôm nay thì diễn biến câu chuyện nó đang rất là hoang mang và chưa có gì rõ ràng hết. Và các âm mưu cũng như các mưu đồ của những kẻ xấu xa thì vẫn chưa được thực hiện. Và James thì vẫn chưa biết rõ là sắp tới mình sẽ phải đối mặt với những điều gì. Và đặc biệt, mối quan hệ của James và Diệp thì càng ngày càng đi vào ngõ cụt khi hiểu lầm càng ngày càng gay gắt. Vậy thì liệu tình yêu có chiến thắng được những sự hiểm ác, thâm độc và âm mưu tàn độc của những kẻ xấu hay không? Thì mời mọi người đón xem tiếp vào video ở phần sau nha. Và mọi người ơi, nếu như mọi người yêu quý kênh thì mọi người hãy ấn đăng ký, sau đó bật chuông thông báo để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào. Cũng như mọi ý kiến đóng góp thì mọi người có thể để lại ở phần bình luận để mình có thể tham khảo và chỉnh sửa cho kênh càng ngày càng hoàn thiện hơn. Và mình xin chúc mọi người một ngày thật là tốt lành. Xin chào tạm biệt mọi người và hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video sau.